Christmas is a fantastic time for spending with children. It's lovely to have that sense of their excitement, even if some of that excitement actually is very much dependent on what sort of fantastic presents they're going to get. But of course, the actual Christmas story isn't desperately child-friendly. It's a story of political machinations. It's a story of oppression. It's a story of shame. It's a story of an unmarried mother and a journey to a hometown. These are not easy subjects for children. Or rather, perhaps they're subjects that as adults we would rather ignore and focus on the nice fluffy stuff. This Christmas in particular, I've been struck as some friends have been looking at the translation of the word that used to be rendered in the Bible as the inn, and you might have noticed in the NIV is referred to as a guest room. Utterly ruins all those lovely nativity plays, doesn't it? If there's no room for the innkeeper and the child knocking at the door and can I come in? And no, you can't come in, we're terribly full. Or as it's been presented in the fantastic Grasmere nativity, look for it on YouTube if you've not seen it yet, where they turn up at a beautiful country house hotel in the Lake District only to find that it's closed because of COVID. That sense of there being no room is usually presented as a logistical problem. The town is busy, the rooms are full up, there's nowhere to sleep. But a colleague of mine has been, he's been worrying about that a bit, because there isn't an awful lot of evidence that that was the case. Bethlehem wouldn't have been an overly large place, probably just a few dozen homes in those days. Truly, the little town of Bethlehem, despite it being a bustling city today. It would have been a small place, not many homes. And the reason that Joseph and Mary are traveling back to Bethlehem is because Joseph has family there. We don't exactly know why he's up in Nazareth, but it seems likely that as a carpenter, it's because he was engaged in the building of a new town just up the road from Nazareth, Capernaum. So we've got this situation where Joseph and Mary are traveling to Bethlehem to be counted, to be taxed. It's a political story. And they arrive, and for some reason, they have nowhere to stay. Now, I don't know how it is for you in non-COVID times, but when family turn up, you usually find somewhere for them. Is it possible that Joseph and Mary are turned away because the family disapprove of the condition that Mary is in? I'm not saying that's the only way of interpreting this passage, but it does make some sense. The idea that they turn up in this small place and there is no room for them might suggest that Joseph's parents, and that's presumably why they are headed back to Bethlehem in the first place, that Joseph's parents do not approve. Maybe they would even go so far as to say that they are bringing shame upon the family. Well, long story short, there is no guest room available for them. And so Jesus is born and is laid in a manger. That would seem to suggest that he's somewhere where the animals are being kept. And I've heard lovely sermons about how That could actually have been a kindness. There's peace and quiet out with the animals. I do wonder whether that's possibly preachers who've never tried to sleep in a place full of animals. Maybe that's why the Christmas carols all seem to be full of animals that don't make any noise and certainly don't smell. I wonder. Well, it's all speculation, of course, it's all conjecture. But if we allow that conjecture for a moment, does it teach us something about and part of the Christmas message that sometimes gets lost in the tinsel and the starlight? Is there a Christmas message here about making space for those who are different, for those who are struggling, for those who are rejected? Is there a Christmas message here that is about saying, can we move beyond dividing people along lines of shame and disgrace and find a way instead of uniting people with welcome and grace? I wonder, is there a Christmas message in here that challenges us to be people not who reject, but include? People who say there is room. This has been such a challenging year. Being physically forbidden from welcoming people into our homes, being physically forbidden from being hospitable, is a real challenge to many of us. But I wonder whether it ought also, therefore, to be a spur and an inspiration in the year ahead. When we get through this, when the vaccines have done their work, when something like normality returns, can we not return to normality, but instead return to a better place where all are welcomed, where people are offered hospitality, where shame and disgrace are replaced by inclusion and embrace? Can we dare to believe that what was begun that first Christmas is still taking root, is still being born today in us? And of course, that happens not because we are somehow more evolved or better than we were, but rather because Jesus himself is still being born in us today. That we are still embodying the love of God sent forth for all. That we are still embracing because God embraces, welcoming because God welcomes. Will we take up that challenge in the year ahead to make space available for others because God made space for us? Amen. Let's